Imagine locking your doors, turning off the lights, and going to sleep in your own apartment, completely certain you are alone. But when you wake up, a chilling realization hits you. A chair is slightly out of place. A piece of leftover pizza is missing from the fridge. Your mind immediately tries to find a logical explanation, but deep down, a quiet, terrifying instinct whispers that someone else was there. Emily moved to Seattle 6 months ago, excited to start fresh. She found a beautiful top-floor apartment in a quiet neighborhood and landed a great job at a marketing firm. Her life felt perfectly on track. She loved the independence of living alone, finding comfort in her cozy, secure sanctuary at the end of a long workday. Everything seemed normal, until the tiny, unexplainable things started happening inside her home. It began with the smallest inconsistencies. Emily would leave her favorite coffee mug on the counter, only to find it resting in the sink the next morning. Sometimes, her television remote would be placed on the coffee table instead of the couch where she clearly remembered leaving it. At first, she simply laughed it off. She blamed her long working hours, assuming she was just tired and becoming a bit forgetful. But then the food started disappearing. A slice of cake she was saving would vanish overnight. A carton of milk would suddenly be half empty. Emily lived entirely alone, and these occurrences were impossible to ignore. She checked her locks and windows every single night, finding everything perfectly sealed. There were no signs of forced entry. The physical impossibility of the situation began to slowly chip away at her sanity. To escape the growing anxiety at home, Emily poured herself into her work. The office was her safe haven. She became good friends with her cubicle neighbor, David. David was incredibly sweet, a little shy, and always ready to help her with difficult projects. He was the kind of guy who remembered everyone's birthday and brought donuts on Fridays. He was completely unassuming, friendly, and utterly normal in every way. Emily even joked with David about her apartment ghost, telling him how she thought she was losing her mind. He listened patiently, offering sympathetic smiles and suggesting she might just need a vacation. His calm demeanor was comforting during a time when she felt her reality slipping. Returning to her apartment each evening, however, brought back the crushing weight of paranoia. The heavy silence of her home began feeling incredibly oppressive. The breaking point happened on a Tuesday morning. Emily woke up and found her heavy living room armchair turned entirely around, facing the hallway. She had not moved it. The cold dread pooling in her stomach finally overpowered her denial. She needed undeniable proof of what was happening in her sanctuary. During her lunch break, she bought a discreet, motion-activated security camera and rushed home after work to set it up. She positioned the small camera carefully on a bookshelf, giving it a clear view of the kitchen, the living room, and the short hallway leading to her bedroom. That night, Emily locked her bedroom door, something she had never felt the need to do before. She lay awake for hours, jumping at every subtle creak of the old building, desperately hoping the camera would capture absolutely nothing but an empty room. The moment the sun came up, Emily grabbed her phone and opened the security camera application. Her heart pounded violently against her ribs. She navigated to the recorded events from the night before, noticing a timeline marker at 2 a.m. She took a deep breath, clicked play, and watched the dark black and white night vision footage of her living room. For a few seconds, the screen showed complete, eerie stillness. Then, the motion sensor was triggered. Emily watched in absolute horror as the heavy wooden panel covering the attic access hatch in her ceiling began to slowly slide open. Someone was up there. Someone was inside the crawl space, directly above her living room. Dust fell through the cold air in the video footage as a pair of legs descended, quietly finding their footing on the edge of her kitchen counter. A man lowered himself silently into her apartment. He was dressed in dark clothing, moving with an eerie, practiced familiarity through her home. He did not stumble in the dark. He knew exactly where everything was. Emily held her breath, tears of absolute panic welling in her eyes, as the man slowly turned his face toward the camera hidden on the shelf. The blood instantly drained from her face. She recognized him immediately. It was David. Her sweet, quiet, helpful coworker. The man who sat next to her every single day, the man she had confided in about her fears, was standing in her kitchen in the middle of the night. The psychological shock was paralyzing. Her mind violently rejected what her eyes were seeing. This was not a random burglar. This was someone she trusted, entirely invading her most private, vulnerable space. On the footage, David did not look through her purse. He did not search for jewelry or electronics to steal. Instead, he simply walked over to the refrigerator, opened it, and calmly drank directly from her juice carton. He casually ate a piece of her leftover chicken, acting exactly as if he lived there. The casual nature of his movements made the entire situation feel infinitely more sinister and profoundly deeply disturbing. But the nightmare was far from over. After he finished eating, David wiped his mouth, turned around, and began walking slowly down the hallway, directly toward Emily's bedroom door. The camera followed his movement until he disappeared off screen. Emily quickly checked the second camera she had placed inside her bedroom, pointing at her bed. She loaded the next video clip, her hands shaking so violently she could barely hold the phone. The bedroom footage showed her sleeping peacefully. Then, the locked door handle silently turned. He had picked the lock. David entered the room, his movements terrifyingly slow and deliberate. He did not wake her. He quietly pulled her small vanity chair right up to the very edge of her mattress. He sat down, leaned his elbows on his knees, and just stared at her sleeping face in the total pitch blackness. He sat there for 3 agonizing hours. He barely moved, never touching her, just breathing softly and watching her sleep in the dark. The terrifying intimacy of the violation made Emily physically sick. At 5 a.m, David finally stood up, walked out of her bedroom, climbed back up onto the kitchen counter, and disappeared into the ceiling hatch, pulling the heavy wooden panel perfectly shut right behind him. Emily did not pack a bag. She did not even change her clothes. She quietly grabbed her keys, slipped out the front door, and ran down the stairs of her apartment building as fast as her legs could carry her. Once she was blocks away, standing safely in the bright morning sunlight of a busy coffee shop, she called the police and showed them the horrifying video evidence directly on her phone screen. The police arrived at the apartment complex within minutes. They quietly bypassed Emily's apartment and went directly into the building main attic space. There, they found David asleep on a makeshift bed. He had created an entire hidden living space directly over Emily's ceiling. He had been living up there for weeks, listening to her every move, completely undetected, until her quiet suspicion finally pushed her to uncover the terrifying truth. The investigation revealed David had developed a dangerous obsession with Emily at work. He secretly followed her home, found a way into the building maintenance area, and discovered the crawl space connected to her ceiling vent. It was a deeply chilling reminder that true danger does not always hide in dark alleyways. Sometimes it wears a friendly smile, sits next to you in a brightly lit office, and asks about your weekend plans. Emily eventually moved to a new building with heavy security, but she never ignored her instincts again. Her terrifying experience leaves us with a crucial lesson. If your intuition tells you something is wrong, listen to it immediately. Do not rationalize away those quiet feelings of discomfort. Your subconscious often notices danger long before your logical mind can comprehend it. Always trust your gut, because that inner voice might just save your life.